What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Beck Check podcast. Now, it's been a while since I've been on here, and I've gotten a lot of flack from my students. They're like, Mr. Beck, where'd you go? What happened to your podcast, Mr. Beck? Are you no longer checking in? Okay, I made that last part up. But it's been busy. It's been really busy, just with the start of the school year, with the master's that I'm pursuing, all these different things. So I just thought I would hop on here real quick. I'm going to share an audio recording of an assignment that I did for one of my master's classes where I talked about where I had to argue for the use of technology in the classroom to help students learn. But then the last 10 minutes, I talk about some of the negative aspects of technology from a book that I read called Digital Liturgies and how it's impacted my life and how it's impacted the way I view technology and how it impacts the way that I teach with technology. Now, in the future, I'm going to be having more teacher interviews. I hope to start interviewing my different professors from my undergraduate and my graduate programs. I hope to really turn this into more of a dialogue between teachers rather than just me rambling on with my own thoughts, which some thoughts might be great, some thoughts might not, but that just really depends on what you think. Anyways, so take a look. This is an audio that I have, again, from one of my assignments as a holdover until I can get some more interviews going. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy. So I'm Elliot Beck. This is the assignment for Mat 518. So I was in the pro position, Why Technology Enables Learning. So here's just an overview of my presentation today. My three arguments are: number one, the societal and generational transformation argument. Number two, I like to call the equity argument. Number three, the nature of technology argument. Fourth, I'll conclude with some of my personal experiences and thoughts. And then fifth, I'll give a little conclusion. And then the very last thing I'll do is a sidebar. It might not relate directly to the idea, does technology enable learning? But I found it really interesting, so I thought I would talk about it. And I've got a timer going, and I'm going to do my best to keep this in under 10 minutes because I spent way too much time on this, but it was really fun. So what I mean by the societal and generational transformation argument is that technology has transformed our lives, point blank, in so many different ways that we can't even fully understand. Every single day, some aspect of technology touches our lives. So this is from Nelson from our textbook. As we employ new tools like laser surgery or satellite communications, we alter our perceptions of technology in our environments, and we are changed. Changes occur in other areas of life with the advancement in such areas such as solar energy, radio, television, microwave and medical imaging, satellite and telecommunication, and other modern conveniences. Romano 2003 writes, at the beginning of the 21st century, how we live, work, and recreate are being transformed by a powerful, pervasive global force, technology. Not only has technology changed our lives, but the current teenagers that we teach have grown up in this changed world. Again, Nelson states that usually teenagers are the experts to technology. They're the ones who adapt to it easier. When we talk about funds of knowledge, or really when we talk about the different things that students bring to the table, what are their background knowledge? What are their interests? What's part of their culture? Technology and social media is such a big part of their culture. You just mentioned Subway Surfers to any ninth grader, and they're going to know what you're talking about. So it's a big part of their prior knowledge. It's something that we should draw on as teachers. So it follows that if this generation is different, at least in part, due to these technological advancements, then using technology in the classroom would enable more learning. Okay, Nelson in our textbook references a study, this meta-analysis that shows the impact of technology and that it's a positive one, especially for this generation and the prior. So Taman, 2011, conducted a meta-analysis of many studies of the impact of technology on learning and conducted over a 40-year period and found that using technology and instruction produced gains in student learning over instruction that does not include technology. And it advocates for more of a blended technology, not completely on tech, not completely without. So, but that's probably a discussion for another day. So in summary of this first argument, technology has completely changed our society. These students who we teach are different, in part because of this technology. And there are studies that show that instruction aided by technology have led to these positive student learning outcomes. We live in a different world. We need to use technology. Now, specifically, that's more of a big picture strokes argument. No, more specifically, how can technology enable learning? And there's a few different ways. So equity, we can talk about equity in all kinds of different ways. It's kind of a buzzword in education, obviously, but the way I'm using it right now is equity in the sense of finding ways to reach all of our students. How do we help every single student learn? To me, that's what equity looks like. So technology is another way that we can help students learn, especially students who learn experientially, coming from the constructivist school of thought. Now, if you disagree with constructivism, that's a whole nother topic we could talk about, but this argument is kind of assuming that constructing knowledge from experiences is a good thing, which I know many would agree, not all would, but that's what this argument assumes already. So I read another argument, another reference from Dills. He wrote a paper about how technology combined with this constructivist style of teaching in middle school social studies classes. That's the context. So, but here's what he says. Historically, traditional teacher-centered approaches benefiting students with verbal learning styles have been the sole method of instruction for middle school students. However, the wide availability of technology, teachers now have a greater opportunity to reach more of the various individual learning styles by incorporating progressive, student-centered approaches into their curriculum, improving upon our traditional teacher-centered approaches. So essentially what this means is technology is providing a new avenue, a new way to reach students that maybe we couldn't have reached before. In the article, he lists a plethora of different examples from social studies classes. I'm just going to share one. So there's this idea within social studies and even public education that we want to prepare students to be active citizens in our country. And so they had this assignment where they had to create a public service announcement about the election coming up. And it was actually going to air on local radio. And students were given a computer and a video recorder, audio recorder, all of that. And so as a summary of this process, I'll skip ahead to a later part of the quote. By considering the results of what they had construction, students were encouraged to recognize the impact of their efforts. Of the democratic process. So technology enhanced, it gave them another way to experience learning rather than just learning about the election. They could make a whole video using technology to experience what it might be like to promote and to get to advance public awareness about elections. So this idea of using technology combined with experiential learning. So technology in this case, at least at the minimum, had the potential to enable students to learn something that they might not have learned otherwise through technology, through experience in technology. Now, if we can contextualize this to our math classrooms, we could talk about Desmos and GeoGebra doing something similar. In Desmos, consider using a slider feature, to mess with the parameters of a function so that students can see how it affects the graph. That's experiential. Or in GeoGebra, creating all kinds of different triangles to discover the side-angle side congruence theorem. So there's this real sense that we can use technology combined with experiential learning to make our practices to make this learning experience more equitable and ultimately reach more students. And then nature of technology. So what I mean by this is, it's not just that we can enhance other projects through the use of technology. And it's not just that there's good online content for math, but the built program within the very nature of technology itself, there's these aspects that lend themselves to helping students learn. But I put some there, and that's a little bit of a caveat because that comes to the sidebar that I talked about earlier, but that'll be at the very end of the video. So from Rochelle, this is another research article that I found. Although active constructive learning can be integrated in classrooms with or without computers, the characteristics of computer-based technologies make them a particularly useful tool for this type of learning. So Rochelle gives this example from lab science of how rather than students monotonously plotting all of these points, they can use a dynamic software to instantaneously know the results of their experiment. And through this technology, it was also cited that students improved in their ability to to use graphs, to interpret graphs by 81% through this use of technology. Another major function within the nature of technology is communication, communicating efficiently and effectively. We know students can learn effectively from communicating with one another. And so don't get me wrong, computers and technology can absolutely be used in isolation. We can also use technology to orchestrate enriching classroom discussions. So I'll skip the quote, but some modern examples of this could be considered Desmos polygraph, right? They have these different cards. Students have to communicate, get each other to guess whether this is true or not, or even Quizlet Live. If any teachers ever used Quizlet Live, you can see how they get on different teams. They have to communicate. And so there are ways to use technology so that students communicate to learn. The very last aspect in this nature of technology is instant feedback. The idea that the learners can grab some feedback right away about what they know and what they don't know, rather than waiting on the teacher on the analog side having to grade all these papers and getting back to them weeks. So there is a sense built within the very nature of technology of instant feedback to help students learn. So my own personal experience, as with anything in education, you need balance. You don't want to get stuck in a rut doing the same thing over and over. Technology is another way we can shake it up a little bit. I love Desmos because, again, another aspect of equity is trying to get more voices in at the table. In Desmos, you can get students who are quiet and maybe they've typed something into Desmos, and that will be a way that I can share their voice. And then students tend to engage with other technologies like quizzes. It's really, really fun in that way to get them excited. The memes are great, the music's great, and they can learn as they're going along. So that's my own experience from technology. So in conclusion, there's no escaping the tremendous effect technology has had on our society. It has been shown to enable learning in positive ways. Technology can be used in equitable ways to reach more students, especially through constructivist means, and a number of its inherent characteristics can be taken advantage of to help produce student learning. So I recently read this book called Digital Liturgies. It's written from the Christian perspective, but it has a lot of valuable information, even if people don't hold that same tradition, hold to that same Christian perspective. It was a very interesting take on how society, how technology is shaping us personally and socially. He describes like the internet or computers and technology in these different ways as an epistemological habitat. By that, what I mean, on page 62 of his book, he says, as mentioned earlier, the web has revolutionized nearly every aspect of our lives. How we learn, how we consume, and even how we worship as a society looks much different than it did even 40 years ago. Because of this, the web is quickly becoming more than just another epistemological or spiritual habitat that competes for our attention and presence. It's becoming the foundational medium, the superstructure of nearly every other experience. I thought that was such a profound way to talk about how the web and how technology has affected our society, the superstructure of every other experience. He uses this analogy in the book to talk about how all of us were like fish in water that don't realize we're wet, right? We have to opt out of technology more than we have to opt in, right? There's all these different safeguards now, like screen time. Or people will, like during the Christian season of Lent, people will give up social media. It used to be like giving up chocolate. Now I'm going to give up social media. We deactivate our accounts for a certain amount of time. Sometimes we get rid of certain things altogether. So there's more of a sense that we need to opt out rather than opting in. Opting in is easy and we're already there. So what I talked about earlier in my other arguments were some of these positive aspects of the form of the internet, but there's a number of inherent characteristics of the internet and of technology that are negative. I know my assigned position was pro, so we can ignore this, but there are real negative aspects of the internet we can't ignore. An interesting one he brings up is hyperlinks. So this idea that I'm reading an article and all of a sudden there's a hyperlink, so I don't actually finish reading the article. I click on the hyperlink and it brings me to a whole nother article, and it kind of makes us distracted, and there can be a real shallowness of thought. If I'm not understanding an article deeply enough because I got distracted by reading something else, I did that on this own assignment. It was pretty miraculous. I mean, as I was reading this, I was like, oh my gosh, I was doing this on this own assignment. Then we can think about social media. Okay, we can talk about how, like on X, I put rage. He uses the word rage. You see people taking shots at each other from all kinds in the education world, in politics, in sports, all these things. On Twitter, you just see these short little comments back and forth that just kind of stirs up rage. Or you could talk about shame, the way how when someone does something wrong and then there's just like a shame avalanche on social media, people just dogpiling this thing that someone did wrong. Now, they very well might be guilty, and very well there are obviously consequences to actions, but there's just a certain sense that on social media we are prone to shame. We are prone to hopping on the bad and out of the bandwagon of like canceling someone. It's really interesting, even just sometimes for honest mistakes. And then he talks about comparison on Instagram, where really when we're creating an identity that is apart from our body, right? Because I am me in my body as a person, right? I'm a person. I would hold that I have a person. I'm a soul. I'm a spirit. I'm all of these things. But we are creating a digital identity in that when we go on social media and all of these different things, I'm comparing, I'm creating, I'm fostering a different sense of identity, and I'm comparing that digital identity to other people's identities when that identity might not even be who they are. Think about filters and all of these different things, right? So there's these inherent pieces of the web that just shape us in these different ways for how it's set up. Consider consumption as another way. The dreaded doom scroll. Like I'll come home from work and I just want to veg out, and all of a sudden I've spent an hour on social media when I could have been doing my homework for my master's class. I'll be honest. So it's kind of remarkable the ways that technology is structured. I mean, it is programmed to keep us on the app longer through outrage. That's the way it keeps us on the app longer, is through outrage. So sorry, I've gone way over time here. In the book also, but he offers this hope about the remarkable plasticity of the brain. Just the fact that we have the capacity to change within our brain. So the neural phenomena that is associated with one set of attitudes or behaviors can change into a different kind in response to repeated practices or consumption. In other words, our choices matter in shaping us into a certain kind of person. That's the main thing that matters, is the idea of choice there. Like and he references a bunch of different research. I don't think this is a crazy new idea, neuroplasticity, but it's really interesting. So this is kind of my, I guess, I don't know, my hill to die on, or just I don't know. I'm blanking on the word for it, but this is kind of what I've been really passionate about after reading this book and after just thinking deeply and seeing the ways that technology has affected my students in all kinds of negative ways. When I hear conversations about, did you see what so-and-so said on social media? Did look what so-and-so posted, or, oh, I'm going to post this about this person, and in the ways, or, oh, so-and-so didn't reply to me, so now I'm not going to reply. Like all these unhealthy thoughts and feelings and emotions that we have. And we can look at the data about depression and all this other stuff with social media. So I think it's important that, given how the internet can powerfully shape us in less than desirable ways, how much more ought we be to capitalize on the good aspects of the internet and teach our students to make the choice of responsible internet use? That's what I'm really passionate about, because where else are they going to get it? Maybe they might get it at home. Are they going to get it from their peers? I don't know. Are they going to get it from the people that they listen to on social media? Probably not, because those people want them to stay on social media, right? I'm not trying to say all social media is bad, but what I am trying to say is teaching math is important. Absolutely. But if there are chances that I can use technology in positive ways, then students need to see how we use technology responsibly through the use of our modeling of using technologies in the classroom. I think more is caught than taught, right? If I can demonstrate to students that technology is a positive thing, we can use it within these bounds, and here's how you use it in a healthy way, I think it could help combat the negative aspects that we can get in technology all the time. So we're in these positions of influence. We need to be having these discussions with our students. I've gone on. This is just what was it? My hot box, or I'm blanking on it, but this is just something I'm really passionate about, and something that I want to talk about with students. And how do we use the aspects of technology that truly enable learning? And then how do we call out the negative for what it is? And how do we use the positive to help our students make better choices regarding responsible internet use? Here's my references. So thanks very much if you ended up watching all of this. I really, really appreciate it. If not, I don't blame you. All right. Thank you very much. And those were my arguments.